Hello and welcome. What's the secret to getting rich? Well, there are plenty of suggestions, spawning a huge global industry in books, lectures, and even board games. A conventional approach to financial independence says we should study hard at school, get the best possible job, work hard to pay bills, and save as much as possible for retirement. Our guest today says the system is flawed and keeps the wealthy rich while others struggle along that conventional path. Robert Kiyosaki is an American entrepreneur who shot to fame more than a decade ago after self-publishing his first book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which attempts to teach people how to make money work for them as opposed to working for money. Well, today, the Rich Dad series has sold more than 26 million copies in 38 different languages. In his latest book, Conspiracy of the Rich, The 8 New Rules of Money, Robert Kiyosaki argues that our school system is a relic of the industrial age, geared to producing employees with almost no financial literacy. He says when it comes to basics like balance sheets, profits, losses, assets and liabilities, we are woefully ignorant and so not truly in control of our financial destiny. Robert Kiyosaki joins us today from Phoenix, Arizona. And so today we ask, is there a conspiracy of the rich to keep us financially ignorant? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. And you can send an SMS or email, and we welcome your phone calls on the show. Robert Kiyosaki, great to have you on the program.
Oh, thank you. It's my honor.
Good to start off with, I guess, for our viewers who are not familiar with the concept, what is the basic idea behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Well, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a true story. I'm fourth generation Japanese American, born in Hawaii. And my real dad was my poor dad. He was the head of education for the state of Hawaii, a PhD, great guy. But as you know, most school teachers don't know much about money. So my dad, my poor dad, died a poor man. And my rich dad was my best friend's father, and he was a man with virtually no education, but he ultimately became one of the richest men in the state of Hawaii. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a very simple, and that's why it sold so many, a very simple story about what two fathers teach their two sons, my best friend and I, about the subject of money. And as you know, we don't teach much about money at school, so that's why we learn about money at home, and that's what Rich Dad, Poor Dad's about.
It's interesting as you talk about gaining financial literacy, and if that's such an important skill, why is it something that isn't taught in schools? Why don't kids get an early start in it?
I asked myself that question since I was a kid, since I was about 9 years old when I started studying with my rich dad. And my rich dad just started teaching me playing Monopoly. He played Monopoly over and over again. And he said the formula for great wealth is found on that board game. It's 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Mm-hmm. And I said, is that all there is? I'm 9 years old. He goes, yeah, that's it. And so that's all I do today. I primarily play Monopoly as an adult. But I think if people really knew how much going to school, getting a job, and how much you'll pay in taxes and how you'll never become rich, I think people would leave school. So I think the main reason they don't tell people the truth about money and why the rich are getting richer and the tax laws and banking laws is because most people would just leave school. So this is a waste of time.
Well,
so I think that's the reason.
Yeah, I wonder if there are those who say that children can only absorb so much, or that children should be left to be children. I wonder, do you see a starting point? At what age children should start getting these kinds of skills?
That's a great question, because at what age is a child interested in money? And I know kids who are like 5 years old, they know the difference between a $1 bill and a $20 bill. And so I think kids are naturally interested in money. And it doesn't have to be that serious. Like I said, I just started playing Monopoly, and I still play Monopoly today. I mean, it's that simple.
Well, it's interesting. We talked about the education system just now. We had a viewer that sent in an email stating the following. It's from Syed Arshid, who wrote in saying, education is a kind of investment, like real estate. Now, I know that a number of educators and thought leaders believe the education system is flawed, and you also explained how you think a lot of people, if they knew what was going on with schools, would leave. What would you change in the schooling system? How do you see it as flawed? What would you change?
Well, there's a number of things. Financial education begins with literacy. Do you understand the vocabulary of money? And do you know the difference between cash flow and capital gains? That's one. Do you understand the tax laws? When you say to a child, go to school or get a job or become a doctor, those people pay the highest percentage taxes at least in the United States. Where a person like me, I can make millions of dollars as an entrepreneur and an investor and pay 0 tax legally. So if you understood taxes and all that, plus how the investment world works, you might make other decisions about a life's course. What profession would you take up?
I'm going to put a couple of emails to you because a couple of viewers expressed their views. The first one is from Khalfan Al-Aremi, who wrote in saying, for some people, education and a good job are the best ways to get rich. And another, who wrote in from Nigeria, Kunle Lawal, wrote in saying, graduates are being groomed to work for multinational corporations as the height of their careers, instead of owning one. Now, I wonder, in your opinion, is it possible to get rich working for someone else?
Oh, yes, it is. I'm not against education. There's three basic types of education. There's academic, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's very important. The second is professional, become a doctor or a lawyer. In my case, I became a ship's officer and an airline, I'm a pilot. But there's no financial education. And the reason when I got out of the military, I flew for the Marine Corps, the reason I didn't go on to become an airline pilot like my peers did was simply because I'd still be an employee. And the airline industry is in trouble today, so a lot of my peers lost their jobs anyway. But the tax laws really punish A students. It punishes them. Like I'll say it again, doctors and lawyers in America pay the highest percentage of taxes, where a guy like me who was a C student, I can make millions and pay zero.
Well, Robert, I know a number of people who've picked up your books and actually do apply the principles that you say quite religiously to their the day-to-day lives. Now, I know you give some fairly controversial advice, so let's get to one or two things. You say cash is trash. What do you mean by that?
Well, I said that about in 1981 I started saying that, and I got crucified for that. If you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I said your house is not an asset. And all my real estate friends, don't send me Christmas cards, or they hate me now for saying that. And I said savers are losers. And the reason for that is you look at the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States, they've printed more money in 2009 than they've printed in the first 100 years of existence. So every time the U.S. prints this counterfeit money called the U.S. dollar, it really robs you and I of our wealth. So savers are losers because, for every dollar the Fed prints, that means your dollar is worth less in savings. That means your labor is also less in savings. But it also means you'll pay more in taxes to pay the interest on that funny counterfeit money. And then you'll pay it again in higher inflation. As you notice, gold keeps going up. So that's why I say cash is trash, simply because in Conspiracy of the Rich, I wrote about how in 1971, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, which basically made all currencies, whether it be the yen or the euro or the shekel, it makes it worthless. They're not worth any money anymore. Well, they're just going down in purchasing power.
Yeah. That advice, spend, don't save, does it apply even when you look at the current economic situation, when you look at people who are really struggling to get their money out into their basic needs?
Yeah, it's really tragic. America had the lowest savings rate in the world, and then this crisis hit. Now they're the highest savings rate. And they're doing exactly opposite, and that's my whole point. If you knew what you were doing right now, I would be buying silver instead of trying to save dollars, because silver, for the first time in world history, if you knew, financial education is knowing a little bit of world history. Today, for the first time, there is more gold than silver on planet Earth. So gold's at $1,100, and silver's at 18. Well, silver's the biggest bargain on history. So I wouldn't be saving dollars. I would be shifting into silver or oil or gold.
I feel the market's moving as you say that. Now, let me put a question to you that came in from a viewer in the USA. Linda Taylor in Michigan wrote in saying, you can't be an expert in everything. May as well allow an expert to handle your finances. How do you feel about that when someone says, well, look, I want to trust someone else with my money?
Well, you got to ask yourself, is the person you're trusting your money a salesperson or a rich person? Most financial planners, and not, God bless them, but they're salespeople. They're not rich people. And the 401k, which most Americans invest in, or in Canada, the RRSP, or in Japan, the 401k, or the superannuation in Australia, they're the worst possible investment. You look at what Time magazine said just 2 months ago. They said the 401k was the biggest scam ever perpetrated upon the American public. And that was the cover of Time magazine. And I've been saying that all of these years. You look in 2002, I wrote Rich Dad's Prophecy, and I said the 401k was ripping people off. So what's happening is people are turning their money over to people they think are financial experts, and I question what an expert is, including myself. But are they salespeople, or are they really rich people? And that's the question I would ask.
It was interesting what you were saying about property and real estate, because I know you put quite a fair amount of emphasis on the real estate market as an investment tool. And I wonder, when you look at this, the fact that the real estate market was really responsible for much of the issues that certainly the Western hemisphere has faced in the recent economic downturn, how would you, have you changed your view on it at all?
No, if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I always talk about cash flow. You see, as a professional investor, you have to know the difference between cash flow and capital gains. 90% of the people invest for capital gains. That's why they'll say, oh, my stock went up in price, or my house went up in value, or my net worth went up. I don't care if my prices go up and down. I only invest, 9% of the time I invest in property that sends me a check every single month. So in good times, I get the check every month. In bad times, I get a check every month. And that's called cash flow. Another point here is this, is capital gains on real estate is taxed very high, and cash flow can come in at zero. So that's really a little financial education. So I don't care if my house goes up or down, or my apartment buildings and my commercial buildings go up and down. Just send me my check every month. That's all I want.
Well, Robert Kiyosaki, we've got more questions for you. We're going to take a very short break here. Back with our discussion when we return. Don't go away. We'll be right back.